Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got some crazy stories coming up here. Justin Trudeau wants to implement this bill, C-26, which will give him draconian powers to do anything online and be anonymous doing it. Are you hearing this? So like, for example, if he didn't like what I'm saying right now, he could contact YouTube and say, hey, I don't like that guy, take it down and keep me out of it. And I would disappear and I wouldn't even know who did it. He could go in and turn off your fridge if it's a smart connected fridge and you wouldn't know about it. Now, obviously, this is very disturbing, especially since it's coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the Freedom Convoy, which I'll be showing here. The couple of the main members spoke at Parliament today, and the timing is really funny.
We need to take a more complete picture of the cyber security threats facing Canadians, and we believe that Bill C-26 will be an important step in accomplishing that task. And warning that the People's Republic of China state-sponsored cyber actors are seeking to pre-position themselves for disruptive or destructive cyber attacks against the United States critical infrastructure in the event of a major crisis or conflict with our neighbor to the south. Bill C-26 will help defend our critical infrastructure and the essential services that Canadians and Canadian businesses rely on every day.
So basically, they're blaming China. You know, the country that donated to the Trudeau Foundation. That one, right? The one that you have so much corruption with. Remember that scandal? Did we forget about that? Oh, this is ridiculous. We got some more clips here on X.
When they referred to this bill as giving the government, in their words, emergency powers and extraordinary powers. And I think it's very concerning to Canadians to want to know, why does the government need, quote, emergency powers and extraordinary powers when we're really talking about trying to boost resiliency against natural disasters and trying to get companies to invest more in cybersecurity? Why does the government require legislation that gives them the power to conduct courts in secret, to announce legislation or block people from being part of the telecommunications sector in secret? Why are these emergency powers, why are they needed when what we need to do is get more investment in cybersecurity?
Well, I'll be happy to respond to that. First, thank you to say this is not a partisan issue. I mean, I think, like you said, we're all trying to do the best thing. I'll give you a very concrete example. If we were to find that there's a breach, in 5G, you have to, I think everyone would agree that this is going to be very decentralized. When you go from 4G to 5G, it's a different world. We're not in the same kind of network because the future would be that you have intelligent products so that everything is interconnected. If we were to find that there is a failure or an intrusion in the network that could have a systemic effect in that, you would want the Minister of Industry in the future to be able to say, you stop or we disconnect that particular person or entity, which is the source of the infection of the entire network, which could have a systemic effect. So the kind of power you need, you need to act very, very quickly because you're talking about...
Why do you need secret courts, Minister?
Well, I'll tell you, it's very simple. Because you would not want the actors, which are the ones who are trying to infiltrate our system, to be aware that you're asking them to plug the gap.
What are you going to put in to ensure that these powers are not abused? I mean, we've had lots of witnesses talk about how concerned they are about these powers. And you call them emergency powers.
People should be concerning. People should be equally concerned that today, imagine, the Minister of Industry doesn't have the power to ask that particular entity to plug, for example, that failure in their system that could have a systemic effect that could affect millions of Canadians. So I would say the check and balance in that, and I would say as a lawyer, you have judicial review, and under judicial review, you have proportionality, you have the Charters of Right and Freedom, all of these bills and legislation.
The Privacy Commissioner has stated that there isn't proportionality in this bill. What can we do to bring more proportionality to this bill?
Well, I would say under judicial review, as you know, it's well established in jurisprudence that you need to have proportionality in terms of the act of the government. But I think you should see it in a positive way. Imagine the reverse of not having the power, and you come to know that there's true 5G, that somewhere in the network, someone is infiltrating that could have a systemic effect that could be damaging both economically or millions of Canadians. I think about the reverse.
Thank you, Minister. I only have about a minute and a half left, but thank you for that.
Yeah, I think Champagne's drunk on himself there. They're posing it as it's always like this. Oh, it's doing for the safety of Canadians, but it's really they want draconian powers to do whatever they want and be anonymous doing it. This is dangerous, man. This is dangerous. There needs to be checks and balances with the other parties, not just like, oh yeah, somebody said something funny about Trudeau. Let's just delete that and have nobody know about it. This is it's getting scary, man. So we got a couple other clips here.
I'm here, of course, to address Bill C-26. This is a bill that grants the government sweeping new powers, and we have concerns that there is no accompanying regime of checks and balances to safeguard rights. As a legal charity dedicated to defending fundamental freedoms, I'd like to speak to some of these points. As drafted, the bill threatens to undermine our privacy rights, as well as the principles of accountability and due process, which form the bedrock of our democracy. The powers proposed by the bill risk impacts on the charter-protected rights of privacy, right against unreasonable search and seizure, freedom of expression, and equality. And of course, we understand that cybersecurity is a huge imperative. We do not believe or accept that cybersecurity ought to come at the cost of civil liberties. The issues raised by this bill apply to Canadians in our everyday lives. For example, under the bill, if someone's device or smart appliance were hacked and used to target a government website, the federal government could order their telecom service to be shut off in an order that could be kept secret from the public, and the affected person or business would never even know that it was the government that ordered their service disconnected. The bill also does not provide a mechanism for restoring service to individuals or businesses. A few substantive issues. The bill raises the specter of new and pervasive surveillance obligations. It empowers the government to secretly order telecom providers to, and I quote, do anything or refrain from doing anything. This opens the door to new obligations on private companies, as well as to other risks of encryption standards, which poses an inconsistency with privacy rights. There are no guardrails in the bill. The bill lacks proportionality, privacy, or other checks which might constrain abuse of the new powers it grants the government. And these are powers that are backed by steep fines and even potential imprisonment for non-compliance. The bill empowers the government to collect broad categories of information from operators, and it may be enabled to obtain identifiable personal data, which can be distributed to domestic and other, perhaps foreign organizations. The bill does not have a mechanism for limiting what Ottawa can do with the data it collects or specified periods for data retention, as well as measures to deal with possible negligence with people's data. We find that the secrecy provisions undermine accountability and due process. The bill enables the government to shroud its orders in secrecy with no mandatory public reporting requirements. Of course, we understand the need for confidentiality, but the public ought to have a sense of how these powers are being exercised to one effect if our elected decision makers are to be held to account.
This is unbelievable. Especially coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the Freedom Convoy, Chrystia Freeland locking people's bank accounts down. There's not a chance that we're going to give them this power after they've proven they're untrustworthy. Locking bank accounts, not letting people pay their bills. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely absurd. Absolutely unreal. I've really got to wonder now. The $8 million barn, we all know it. $8 million on the ugliest barn. Believe it or not, there was an architecture firm hired to do the architecture, the design of this $8 million barn. So when they built this, there was a bunch of contractors that had to sign a bunch of NDAs and stuff, and you couldn't have anyone go near it. There's a bunch of fiber optic cables, and there's an elevator and this and that. You got to wonder, maybe this is their draconian cyber dungeon where they have someone in there and Trudeau can go over anytime he wants. It's like, oh, someone said something bad about me. Get them to delete it. Or that person over there is, whatever, affecting my anything. Oh, my investments, my this, my that. Like, if you have that kind of power and you have someone who's been proven to be corrupt, this cannot happen. So I'm thinking there's one of two reasons why they built this barn. One, it's for the cyber security draconian plan they've got here. Or two, it's Trudeau's love dungeon. Jake meat. You know it's Friday night. Come on in, Jake meat. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Trudeau's love dungeon. Until he lets someone to do a tour inside, he got to prove me wrong. Okay, next up, we've got some members here of the Freedom Convoy speaking at Parliament. It's pretty amazing they let them in the building to speak freely like this, honestly.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're obviously with the freedom movement, and one thing in particular, if I was to have, say, maybe a red maple leaf on and freedom across that, I would not be able to enter the building. So that's just a note. We're all well aware of the ruling by Justice Mosley in relation to the Emergency Act, which was called upon by the Trudeau government. Now, it was quite stated that it was unjustified and unconstitutional. Being amongst the freedom movement, obviously people ask and they say that was a great victory. You guys must be happy for this. But I must say, no, it's a hollow victory for us. And it's a hollow victory for us because of what had occurred. People's lives have been disrupted, maybe changed forever. Charges, loss of income, loss of jobs, all for their right to fight for the freedoms that we have in this country. It did note one important thing, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to be here to address this. It exposed this ruling, exposed the lies, falsehood, and myths, truths that accompanied 2 years ago while we were here in Ottawa protesting. Everything from breaking into stores to arson. It was all proven that it never happened. They were all falsehoods. Many MPs stated these were concerns, stated that somehow people practicing their rights under our charter and under our freedom of rights was some sort of a threat to this country. And
Corrupt media.
Many MPs on the Liberal side perpetuated these lies. We have still not had an apology for those lies from any MP in the government. I do not want to speak for groups within the freedom movement that have started litigation processes, but there are litigation processes underway right now. So I won't speak any further to that, but there has. Ideally, an apology from the government would help in some matter.
Just briefly here, so there are multiple lawsuits going on now. There's 4 different people being represented by a lawyer that are suing Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau. And there's companies that produced PPE, protective masks, and they were promised government contracts to drop all of their work and start producing masks, and they were never given those government contracts. So they are also suing the Trudeau government.
I believe Canada itself changed very dramatically on that last day, 2 years ago on the 17th. Because what had occurred is we had our ruling government weaponize police officers, weaponize the establishment, and weaponize the justice system against its own people. Now, these were people that our Prime Minister labeled many words, called them a threat, said we couldn't go on trains, said we couldn't fly, all because we challenged and we wanted, basically, our own health. We weren't willing to take something that was really experimental. And the evidence that has come up, although it's being pushed down, will eventually prove to that point that we were correct. But really, I really want to stick to the message that our police were weaponized, our justice system were weaponized against our people. And historically, that has not done very well for companies when a leader against a group he disagrees with in a country uses violence to suppress them. Is a very slippery slope. Now, I do also want to salute to all those that were involved in the original convoy for their bravery and their foresight. That foresight, they realized what is happening. They realize that we have a government in place that is really ideologically driven. They do have I will use this word tyranny, because I believe someone in the media said that our main goal right now is to fight tyranny. But if tyranny is, and quite simple, there's several bills that are going to restrict freedom of speech in this country. We have people in Parliament wanting just simply a law in place that anyone that supports our oil industry to be in jail for 2 years. That this is the type of ideological thinking that's causing extreme divisions in this country. I can't remember in our history, and other besides the senior, where the government has basically waged war on one of the provinces in this country without negotiation. And it has been shown that there is negotiation. Leaders should be pragmatic. We don't have anything from this government stating that they're going to be have any sort of pragmatism towards any opposing views in this country, regardless whether it infringes upon our rights as well. So, again, across this country, there will be many events. These are not celebrations, but more for remembrance of what occurred on the 17th. There's several events in the city.
So anywho, this weekend we're planning I guess a commemoration is probably the best way to put it. We didn't choose the weekend and the date by accident. This is the time that the Emergency Act was invoked, and I was there, and a lot of us were present for the brutal clear out here in Ottawa. So we're going to remember that. We're going to get together and network, and we've got some fun stuff planned as well.
The freedom movement, and it's been so much misconstrued throughout the media and just throughout the general public. We are a very peaceful movement. We believe in no violence at all. We are a mix of all Canadians, Canadians that were born here, Canadians that have fled other countries. Just in my small little group alone, we speak 6 languages. I have people that were born in different countries that have come here to Canada, that have seen and what's happening in terms of the loss of and the threats of our freedoms. Going back to how I want to preference this by, is again to congratulate those that started the original convoy, to illustrate this to the general public. But where we are right now, and I'm truly reaching out to the general public, regardless of who you are, where you're from, that the freedom movement is actually for yourselves. We are in a very difficult time in this country. I don't believe Canada has ever been in worse economic conditions that we have right now. We have a laundry list of corruption, alleged theft, alleged billions missing. The list goes on and on. Inquiries cancelled, non-cooperation in inquiries. The list goes on and on. So as a people, there's no accountability. Good governance and ethics has certainly left this government as it stands right now. There's none of it. Good governance and ethics are part of their description, and none of it I see at all. Secrets in the government are repugnant. There should not be any. We have no accountability, and this is why I'm reaching out to our people of this country. There's many things still ahead. As I mentioned, censorship bills, the signing with the World Health Organization of the pandemic treaty, which gives our health sovereignty away. There's been no discussion on this. It has to be researched. This is forthcoming pending. Our Prime Minister also wanted to add climate change into a health. Where's the rationale? Where's the science? Where is anything to relate that? The government right now has basically lost the reasoning that they actually work for us. This building that we're in is ours. The parliament that they're in is ours. They're supposed to listen to us. They do not listen to us. They're staying focused on their own ideology and putting that through. Because of that, going into a new election, of course there's going to be a swing as it looks, but this is an excellent opportunity for us to reach out to the general public, for all our citizens, to realize and to make sure that this corruption this unaccountability in government doesn't exist. So how do we go about that? Well, there's several options. There's several things within the movement in which we need our citizens to come work with us on. Basically, ideally, the Senate that we have, we need an independent Senate, an electable Senate. We have to have revisions of the Privy Council. We may also have to have revisions of the Crown. Do we still want to have a Crown system? Do we still want to have a parliamentary-based democracy in which we have right now? If this is what results in a government so corrupt and so dysfunctional as we have now. We come from several walks of life. We have everything from welders to truck drivers to cooks to actually members of police enforcement to members of the judiciary to politicians as well. So we are not a radical fringe or anything like that. We are free citizens. We are free citizens that have seen the change in our government over the last year, realize where it's heading, and that our freedoms are threatened.
And you said you want to reach the general public. How do you plan on doing that?
Well, starting with this, I guess.
Definitely. There are several things we like to reach out to the general public is their understanding of the issues that are at hand within the government in terms of the alleged corruption, the alleged theft. Are they happy with the way government is behaving? There's no accountability, no disclosure of actually what's occurring on several matters. And the biggest thing is 65% of this country has less than $500 left over at the end of the month. Now, the government that's in play right now has basically come out and said that they're for the middle class. So if they're for the middle class, I ask the general public, having less than $500 left over at the end of the month, is that a government for you? Is it a government for you that has more increased taxes on April 1st? Is this a government for you in which they're proceeding with censorship bills that are down lead? Is this a government for you that priorities are constantly shifting? Do I see any priorities for housing veterans? Do I see any priorities for fixing the housing on First Nations? We're still waiting after 8 years for clean water on First Nations lands.
Disgraceful.
So these are types of things that we talk about. The poverty, how are our children being educated in school? These are several issues that we want to reach out to the community on. And I know there's concerns. The poverty is increasing, homelessness is increasing. Taxes and taxes in our future. Is this what we want to live in? Do we want to live in this division as well? Do we want to live in a country where one province is somehow wrong? The one province that has fed this whole nation for quite some time, we can't negotiate? Do we want to live in a country where arbitrarily a minister comes out and says, I'm not making roads anymore? When we need roads to First Nations in the north, at least, when we have crumbling infrastructure in our cities now, all in the name of ideology, all unproven. So these are the things I'm reaching out to the general public. I know they're feeling the same thing. And it will take collectively all of us to change it. It will take collectively all of us to make the government aware that they're accountable to us. They don't rule us. They're accountable to us.
Well
so these are the types of things that we'd love to speak to any citizen on.
Are you expecting to receive any support from MPs?
Yes, so there has been several MPs that have spoken out harshly on the use of the Emergency Act. That really, according to Justice Mosley, there really wasn't any basis for it at all. So I do appreciate those MPs speaking out on that. I'm hoping that they will be in attendance tomorrow as well. Primarily, the Conservative Party has been the only party that has come out against the use of the Emergency Act. Me personally, I won't mention their names, but I have had some very good conversations with members of the NDP and the Liberals that do see what I just said, but they can't control the directions of their parties as well. So hopefully they'll be there too.
Plot thickens. Plot thickens. So clearly some of the Liberals did not agree with that being used. They're keeping their mouths shut.
You talked about wanting an apology. I'm wondering who specifically is kind of the most important. Is it the Prime Minister? Is it other members of Cabinet? And following up on that last question, have you had any conversations while you were on Parliament Hill? Why did you choose Parliament Hill today for this press conference?
Okay, I'll kind of answer that backwards. Why I chose this day for the press conference in Parliament Hill is because we will be remembering what occurred on the 17th, just on Parliament Hill tomorrow. So that was appropriate. I have spoken to some MPs in regards to this. In terms of an apology, ideally I would like an apology from the all parties that had voted in favor of the Emergency Act. That includes Mr. Singh and the NDP. That also includes Justin Trudeau. Krista Freeland definitely owes a significant apology, especially to those that have suffered freezing of their bank accounts and the repercussions after that. I actually would hope that she would apologize to each person individually for doing that. Now, there's Justice Lametti. There's also Minister Mandicino. An apology for obviously voting in favor of the Emergency Act. I'm hoping these comments were in jest or comical on their part, but of bringing in tanks to remove people with tanks, our own military, resembling what a third world nation would do. So yes, those are the apologies that I would like to hear.
Yeah, this was a good press conference. This guy's well-spoken. It's you really hit the nail on the head for everything. We need to really voice and decide what kind of country we want, and not one that Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland want. Klaus Schwab and all this garbage, WEF. No more WEF. We should put a 100% ban on WEF. No more prioritizing the 1.5% of climate effect that Canada has on the earth over suffering of Canadians. Canadians need to come first. Everything is so broken and so driven by ideology, like he said. It's just unreal. So they'll be doing multiple Freedom Convoy gatherings, remembrance, as they said, on the 17th here today. That your day you're watching this. This press conference is from the day before. I expect those gatherings to be just like the Freedom Convoy. There'll be peaceful protests. There'll be peaceful gatherings. I'm sure Poopy Pants Justin Trudeau will go back to his bed, suck his thumb, as he was proven wrong by the court. What are your thoughts on that new Bill C-26? It's scary stuff. It really is. They already got shut down for invoking the Emergencies Act, and now they want to put in a draconian law that gives them even more power. This is crazy. It really is crazy. So I want to say thanks to all the viewers on my channel. So many people coming in. The subscriber count is going up every day. So as all my channel members, thank you for joining. I finally just found out how I can reply to all your comments. It's my first time using the channel member system. Typically I use my Patreon. I have a Patreon down below. It's linked up to my hiking channel, but it all goes to the same place. I just want to thank everyone for the support. Hopefully we can stay strong through this and shut this bill down and make Canada great again. See you guys in the next one.